Hi there, welcome to the Rest Course. This is session 2 and we're going to keep exploring this idea of rest. In session 1 we looked at the toxic nature of hurry and rushing and busyness and how harmful it is, how violent it is in one sense to our relationships and to love, because it seems almost impossible to love if we are rushing and hurrying and bustling everywhere. But there is a different way to live. There is another way to do it. If you're familiar with the Bible, you might know these words from Matthew chapter 11, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And on the face of it, those words are fantastic. I mean, who's not weary and burdened? Who wants rest for their souls? Who doesn't want to find something that's easy and light? I mean, that's all of us, surely. And yet in practice, it seems like this is super hard. In another translation of those verses, we read that Jesus says we've got to walk with him and work with him. So there's this sense, a bit like from Jeremiah 6:16, about the need to walk in it once we've taken that right turn at the crossroads to pursue rest, that it won't just appear or alight upon us, but it will need working at, which is part of our issue, because we'd much rather not work at it. We'd much rather enjoy a second-rate rest, which is not really rest at all. In Isaiah chapter 31:1, we read, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses, who trust in the multitude of their chariots and in the great strength of their horsemen, but do not look to the Holy One of Israel or seek help from the Lord." You see, we still think rest is found in things other than Jesus. When Isaiah wrote those words, chariots and horses were the picture of power at the time. They were like, that's where you go if you want to get something done. You get lots of horses and lots of chariots. And right now our culture tells us that if you want to rest, you go to Netflix, you go to wine, you go to sport, you go to shopping, you go to Amazon, you go to your phone, you go to social media, you go to novels, you go to films, you go to theatre. But in truth, that's just like Isaiah's culture saying, hey, here's where power's found. Our culture says, here's where rest is found. The problem is rest is not found in those places. Checking out, switching off, disappearing for a few hours. Oh, that's found there, but that's not rest. Jesus has something way better for you than that. Our problem is encapsulated by Jeremiah's words in chapter 2 and verse 13. "My people have committed 2 sins. They've done a couple of things wrong. They've forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water." In reality, that's what we all do all the time. We forsake Jesus, who actually gives living water and refreshes our soul, and we go to other sources that don't quite refresh us in the same way, because we are sold it. Why? Because we've given our attention over to something else. As I said in the last session, it's a fight for your attention, and the tech companies are really good at grabbing your attention. And frankly, there's very little Jesus can do to compete with the blip on your phone or the pull of Netflix. There's not much he can really do. It'll have to be us that makes that choice. And I don't mean that Jesus can't do it, but the way that we are wired, the way the psychology behind all the tech that we have now and all the other things, it's so strong and so powerful that you will not naturally want to pick up your Bible when there is a phone you can scroll through. Your brain is lazy and it will do the easiest thing it can do. We will have to walk in it and work at it, but the rewards are fabulous. So our issue is that we go to our own wells, but they don't do the job. The refreshing doesn't last, and sometimes they don't even refresh us, they just actually steal from us. When we're low, we don't tend to grab some time with Jesus. We don't tend to pick up our Bibles and read his love letter to us. We don't tend to sing to him and worship him and adore him. Instead, we put on the TV, we pick up our phones, we pour a glass of wine because, hey, I need to relax. We are distracted from the one who gives living water. We've never learned to lean into the one who gives living water. Hebrews 4 tells us that God has offered to us the same promise of entering into his realm of resting in confidence. So we must be extremely careful to ensure that we all embrace the fullness of that promise and not fail to experience it. The idea of rest in this passage in Hebrews 4 is a sense of settling down or a calming of the wind. God has offered us a promise of entering into his realm of resting, but we must be extremely careful to ensure we all embrace the fullness of that promise and not fail to experience it. This fascinates me. It seems there's a rest available, but it's more than possible to fail to experience it. Well, of course. This realm of resting is available to all of us, but there's very little resting evident in many of our lives. Instead of resting, there seems to me to be much anxiety, much fear, much worry, much concern. You see, one of the issues of being at rest is that you have to actually be in today and in today's moment. One of the problems and the reasons we don't rest, we don't sit and we don't be still and we don't be quiet, is partly because some of us are so hooked up in the past. All our emotional energy is in the past and going over what happened and what went wrong and why it was so terrible. Or for some of us, our emotional energy is completely rooted in the future and we're worried about tomorrow and the next day and next week and next month, and all our emotional energy goes into worrying about it and creating this future that may or may not happen, but we put all our energy there. But actually, one of the things about resting is that we live in today for today. The other huge challenge we have with resting is that it's completely alien to our consumerist culture that says you've got to work hard. So we put value by things like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and put in a hard day's work and make sure you work hard. There's lots of good work ethic around that says you've got to work hard and put the effort in and make sure it happens. But the thing about resting and just being with Jesus is that you don't do anything, which is a huge threat to our ego. Because for most of us, whatever it is that we do, it gives us purpose and it gives us value and it gives us something to stick our hat on so that we can do this, and it makes us feel good. And the idea of resting and stopping challenges huge parts of our ego, huge parts of our worth. And then for others of us, stopping means we might have to actually see what's in our souls and face up to the things in there. Our busyness is just a way of running away from whatever's in our heart. Now, these are all understandable. And tons of people all over the world do. I've done all those things. I've rushed around to run away from something because I didn't want to face something. I've rushed around to try and get somewhere, to get this, to get that, to be this, to be that. But actually, resting is being with Jesus in a moment and seeing him in that moment and allowing him to see us in that moment, which is why it's hugely challenging to our ego. This is why most people don't manage it. But all I want to ask of you this session is these couple of questions. Because in Hebrews 4 verse 11 we read this: so then we must give our all and be eager to experience this faith rest life so that no one falls short. So let me finish with this question. How eager are you to experience it? Are you willing to give your all to find it? Are you willing to face the things in your heart you've been running away from? Are you willing to give up the things you're running towards? Are you willing to deal with what's behind you and trust in today? Are you willing to give up what you think might be in front of you and focus on today? This is why rest is so incredibly important, because it deals with all those things, and they are big things. So my challenge for you at the end of this session is simply to ask, will you unashamedly and ruthlessly pursue rest? Will you take some radical steps to live in it? Are you prepared to be ruthless, to get the rest your soul needs and wants and craves? Are you prepared to be seen as radical in your pursuit of it? What price are you prepared to pay to live in his rest? His rest is available to you. But there must be a conscious effort to live in it. And you can do it. You can have it. As I have slowed down, I have sped up, and I am a much better person, a much better leader, a much better husband, a much better father because of it. Did it cost me? Yes. Was it worth it? 110%. Because there is no price that's not worth paying to be like Jesus. It's always worth it. Take care. See you soon.